Welcome everybody to the residency program series at Texas A&M Dermatology Interest Group podcast. My name is Tristan Slamowitz. I'm an M3 at Texas A&M, and I'm here with Dr. Delphina Burr. She's currently a PGY2 at UT Austin's Dell Medical School. So thank you so much, Delphina, for joining us today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we'd love to start with just an introduction. Tell everybody a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. So I am originally from Argentina. I moved to America about 10 years ago for college. I went to the University of Virginia where I met Tristan. And then I did medical school at the University of Texas in Houston. I did not do a research year. I went straight into UT Austin, which is where I'm currently at. I'm actually a PGY3 now. So
Congratulations.
the only reason it matters is because I've completed now 1 year of dermatology, so I'm in my second year of derm.
Okay,
But I know a little bit more about the residency program now that I've been there for a year.
that's
Uh,
good.
yeah, and I did my intern year. I did a transitional year at the University of Texas in Austin too, at UT Austin.
Okay. So what are your interests in dermatology?
So big reason I chose it was because of the procedures. I haven't done a Mohs rotation yet. That's something you do your second year of derm. So I have it coming up in like a month. Um, I don't know if I'll end up pursuing Mohs. Probably not, but I do think I'll have a procedural heavy like practice just because I love procedures, any kind of procedures, but I don't think I love it enough to do Mohs. So that's a big interest for me. I got into medicine just from like being a medical interpreter. So, I love the community care clinic that we have. All my patients speak Spanish, and
Oh,
we
that's
just relate
wonderful.
on a different level because of it. So, yes.
Very cool. Well, tell us a little bit more about UT Dell. How many clinic sites or hospitals do you guys work with?
Yeah, so we actually do have quite a bit of sites. So you have a half day at your community care clinic.
Mhm.
There are two different sites. There's a north and a south site. I'm assigned to the north site, and so I have it every Monday morning. So you have a half day a week for your continuity of care. These are your patients. It's your clinic, and so it's the only clinic that's like 100% yours.
Okay.
It's hard to call out sick from because they're your patients. And then we have several rotations. We work at the VA.
Okay.
Um, we work at a clinic called Trinity Clinic, which is near our hospital. Our main hospital is Dell Seton, and they're like 2 blocks away. Trinity, we spend a lot of time with. We
Mhm.
have a lot of specialty clinics there, which I can go into in a little bit. We have a Buda clinic, which is a little bit more south. We also have a pediatric clinic, and we have a peds derm program here. So if you're interested in peds derm, it's great because there's a solid program here and a distinct program here. We also cover Dell Children's Hospital. They now open Dell Children's North, so we do teleconsults at Dell Children's North, and then we do also Seton, Maine. So like I'm on call now, when you're on call, you can go to Seton, Maine, Dell Seton, and Dell Children's, and then there are other Ascension facilities that can teleconsult you, but they're only teleconsults. We never go there in person.
Okay. How many residents do you guys have in your program?
We have 4 per year, so we're yeah, 12 total.
And how many faculty?
Oof. Oh gosh, we actually have a lot of faculty. We have way more faculty than we do residents. I was counting it the other day, but I forgot. It must be around 20.
Okay.
We've, in the past years, it's grown a lot. We've hired a lot of specialty clinics. So there's like a immunobullous clinic, there's a nail disorders clinic, there's a transplant clinic, and there's like a telemedicine doctor, like dermatologist, because we do quite a bit of teledermatology too. So it's grown quite a bit. There's definitely a lot of attendings, a lot of people you can go to and learn from.
That's wonderful. Do you have a lot of like FaceTime with those attendings? Do they teach you during your didactics?
Yeah, yeah. So we have didactics every Friday morning,
Okay.
all morning, and then we have Tuesday mornings, just like a resident only, like Bologna chapters that we go over every Tuesday morning. from 7 to 8, and then we have didactics from 7 to 12 on Fridays. Um, I personally learn the most during clinic, though. The attendings are very, very bright and
Mhm.
very kind too. So, I definitely a lot of learning your first year, but everyone was very kind in teaching me the things that I didn't know.
Right.
And they all have specialties in different things. For example, like a lot of people don't know that much about nails, but we have a nail specialist. And so whenever I go to peds, they'll be like, what does Dr. Yim do like with nails? And so it's great to have such a diversity in like what people specialize in.
Right.
So I learn a lot during clinic. They take a lot of time to teach you there, but then we have formal didactics as well.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Um, does your program have any fellowships associated with it?
No, no, they don't. I think they are considering maybe opening a PEDS fellowship, but that's still in the works. So no, no, nope.
Okay. Do you have any research fellowships opportunities for medical students?
Yes, yes, we have a research fellow every year.
Okay.
They work mainly with Dr. Diaz, which is one of our pediatric dermatologists, and she's an associate program director. So she interviews with along with other faculty. So we have a research position for a research fellow every year. Yes.
Okay. And is it just one student in that program?
Yes, it's just one student.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you historically match your research fellows?
Um, Yes and no. Yes, there have been people that we've matched that have been research fellows, like someone that's been in my class or the class above. But there's also been research fellows that haven't matched.
Okay. And that kind of leads into the next question on how your program views students who did a research year or a PhD versus students that came straight through medical school.
Yeah, so as a first year last year, you're part of the interview process. So as a resident, you are part of the
Okay.
interview process. You interview them specifically if you're a first year or a PGY2 because you're going to overlap a year with them. So now that I'm a PGY3, I'm not part of the I'll be in in their social little breakout rooms, but I'm not actually part of the interview. But you have a vote and you have a say, and you're part of the interview when you are a first year dermatology resident. And obviously, I don't know what goes on in the conversations between the attendings because we're not part of that. But I don't necessarily think that there is favor for, doing a research year or a PhD versus not. We have a mix of people in our class that have done researchers. Like I would say half did researchers, half didn't. So I don't think they have a specific preference. I personally am not someone who really likes research much, and I don't think that I've been penalized for not searching for all the research opportunities. There are other people in our class that have done so much research, and that's great. But in my case, like I don't do research, and I don't. No one. It's not a problem.
Okay. And I think that's really cool that they offer the opportunity for the residents to actually help with interviews and like offer
Yes.
you all a say since these are also going to be your coworkers. So,
Exactly. Yeah. It's a very interesting process.
does your institution accept DO or IMG students?
So I don't know about DOs. I don't know historically if we've ever had a DO, but we actually do have an IMG in my class. She used to be a dermatologist in Brazil, and she is redoing her dermatology residency now. She's in my class. She obviously, very experienced, and she did a lot of research with our faculty for many years. And then when she was able to get her visa status changed, she was able to she matched, and she's phenomenal. So yeah, but I don't know about DOs, quite frankly. Not in the time that I've been here.
Okay. I'd like to pivot now and talk a little bit more about training. I know you'd kind of mentioned some of the didactic structure, but could you speak a little bit more about the overall structure of your program?
Yeah, you mean the structure when it comes to learning, or?
Yeah, I think like in terms of like how your week lays out and like the different aspects of the
Yeah,
program.
yeah, for sure. So as I mentioned, Monday mornings, I have my CUC clinic. It's either Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday morning that you're going to have your continuity of care. And then usually in the afternoon, you go to another clinic. They really try to keep you at the same clinic the whole day so that you're not commuting like in the middle of the day. And they're pretty good at doing that. So basically, average day at most sites is from around 8 to 5. Friday mornings, we have our didactics in the morning, and then we have one half day that's academic time. So So usually for me, Mondays, so that I don't commute, I have ACA, it's called. So I'm off that afternoon and I can use that time, to study, and because derm has a lot of studying. Usually weekends you're off, your first year you have 6 weeks of call, your second year now I have 5 weeks of call, and your last year you have 4 weeks of call. So when you're on call after hours and during the weekend, it's home call, so you hold the pager. If I get paged, I gotta go, but otherwise, it's home call. It's not, you don't have to be in the hospital unless you're being paged.
Okay.
But average, like you have, your weekends, you work 4.5 days a week since you have that half day off a week. And then you get, holidays off. You'll usually get, like we had July 4th off, you'll get Labor Day off, etc.
Okay, that's really nice. Is that pretty consistent through all 3 years?
Yes. Yeah. Like I think it just depends. Like if you're a first year, like you have to cover call for like Christmas and like the major holidays. And like so I covered I think New Year's last year. But now I only have to cover like one minor holiday. So I think I'm covering MLK this year. And then your last year you don't cover any like major or minor holiday. And the Chiefs are the ones who make the schedule. So they're the ones who end up deciding when you're on call and things like that.
Okay. Do you have any elective experience?
Yeah, you do. I think you have 4 weeks of elective, if I'm not wrong. So, for example, last year we had someone match into like a laser and aesthetic fellowship in San Diego. So she did, a week there. She did a week with Miami, training with lasers in Miami, and then you can take a week to do just research. If you are going into Mohs, you can do, we have Mohs here, by the way. I didn't mention that rotation. That's the rotation you do as an upper level. You do like 2 months of Mohs. We have two Mohs surgeons
Okay.
near our hospital. But if you want to do Mohs, you can do Mohs at another program. So yeah, you have, I think it's 4 weeks in total.
Okay. What are there any other elective opportunities besides, I know you mentioned Mohs, and then didn't you mention that pediatric dermatology you have some
Yeah, yeah. You do 1 month of peds your first year. I think you do 2 months your second year, and then your third year. And we have and then you float sometimes. You just, cover peds that for a day or a half day. So we have a pretty strong peds program. The only reason I mention it is because a lot of programs don't have a separate peds clinic. Like there'll be adult dermatologists that see peds patients, but we have like fellowship trained peds attendings, and you solely see peds patients in those clinics. It's a pediatric clinic.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
very good. Do residents spend time on other services?
Um, Not really. No, we do consults for a month or 2 months your second year. But that's still derm service. No, you don't rotate through other services like surgery or anything like that.
Okay, okay. So I want to talk about the clinical sites that you mentioned. I know you said that you get VA
Mhm.
experience. Can you talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that clinic?
Yeah. So I'm actually the VA resident now. Um, It's, 7:30 a.m. usually to 4. We do a lot of procedures at the VA. We have 2 half days of procedure at the VA, so you get a lot of experience there. It's a very busy clinic. We have a lot of attendings that staff there. Um, but yeah, you just see general derm.
Okay. And then you talked about the pediatric clinic that you all have. And you talked a little bit before about the like commuting between locations. What is the farthest that you have to like transport between your locations to
Yeah,
get?
so it depends where you live. I live like next to the hospital in East Austin. My farthest drive and commute is probably to Buda. So Buda is down. I wish I had a map to show you, but Buda is down south. And usually it's just like 15-20 minutes. But sometimes when you're coming back home at rush hour, it can be 30-minute drive. But overall, even though we have a lot of sites, I don't personally find it like a big deal to have to go to several sites because Austin's really small. And so the distances that you're covering are not big. Like if we were in New York City and you had to cover a longer distance and there's a ton of traffic, I think it would be way harder to have as many sites as we have. But Austin's really small and you need a car in Texas. So like
Yeah,
you can't be a resident here if you don't have a car.
that's
I think
true.
I think that's true for most places in Texas. Um, but I don't personally feel like it's an issue, your commute. But Buda is probably the farthest for me.
Okay. What would you say are the strengths of your program?
I think the specialty clinics, the amount of specialty clinics. Um, we just have people that know so much about specific things. So as a resident, it's great because like how many people get nail training, like or immunobolus specialists? Like it's great that we have so many specialists that know so much about certain topics. We have a vitiligo clinic,
Mhm.
like a pigmented lesions clinic. We have attendings like Dr. Adamson who do a ton of research and are very known for their research. And so I feel like they do a really good job at picking attendings that all have very different interests. And so as a resident, it's great because you get training in so many different things because everyone's specialized in something different and you can kind of choose your niche. So that's one of my favorite things about the program. I also really like how kind people are here. That's part of the reason I chose the TY you're here. I don't know why, but for some reason, like as an institution, throughout all um, specialties, they're very good at choosing people that are very kind. So also, like I felt very nervous coming in. Like I don't really know that much about derm, and like no one ever made me feel like I was an idiot for not knowing something. So I think that's a huge strength.
Yeah, that does sound wonderful, having a good community where you
Mhm.
um what would you say is a direction that your program is working to make improvements?
I think an issue, like a site that we've been trying to work on improving is the VA. So, there's many frustrations that can come with the VA just because of the way the system is. So the attendings that are in charge of the VA have been like incredible and like hosting like hour-long sessions for us to like talk about ways to improve, and we do QI projects to make the VA better. But like there are certain things about the VA that are just beyond our control. Like I've never worked at the VA as a medical student because we weren't associated, but like CPRS, the EMR that you use at the VA is just very frustrating. It's very prone for you to make errors, but it's out of our hands. Like there's
Right.
nothing. We try to like have an Excel sheet to like not miss things and like be cautious with like biopsies and make sure that like melanomas are being excised and things like that, but mistakes are still made. But it's I really appreciate how much faculty like spends time like listening to us and our ideas to try to improve that site and the flow. But I do think that to an extent there's not that much that can be done. Yeah.
Yeah, that could be frustrating, but it seems
Yeah.
like you guys have a lot of resources that and are working on that as well. So,
Yep, yep, yep.
you mentioned that you do 2 months of dedicated Mohs.
Mhm.
Are there any other surgery experiences that you get with your program?
No, I think it's just mainly Mohs. I mean, you get a lot of surgery training just through clinics. Like at the VA, you have you do a ton of surgery. Like I've done over 80 surgeries. Like the whatever you quota you have to meet, like you way surpass it. And but specifically like for derm surgery, just Mohs. I think you do 2 months, your second and your third year.
Okay. And when do you get to start doing procedures?
Oh, off the bat. Uh, for the residents started, our new residents started, they had orientation for a week and then they started last week. And I walked a few residents through their first procedure ever last week. They had procedure clinic last week. So your
Okay.
first week, yeah, you're thrown into
Wow.
it. Yes.
Thrown in the
Yeah.
deep end. Gotta love it.
Yeah.
How much training do you get in cosmetics specifically?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'm currently with another resident heading the cosmetic clinic. You do that as a second year derm. And so we have a Westlake dermatology, like a lot of their faculty, the attendings there will volunteer their time. And so like I think it's like once a month or once every other month, we will have a Friday afternoon that is a cosmetic clinic. And so you bring in your own patients and you practice on them with the supervision of the Westlake dermatologists. So as a resident in total, you'll do it like 3 or 4 times a year because you rotate. Like not everyone can go to a cosmetic clinic. It's
Okay.
like 3 or 4 residents at a time. And then we have Dr. Holmig, who's one of our Mohs surgeons, but also does a lot of aesthetics. He will hold sessions for us every month or every 2 months to teach us on each other things. Like last week we had a Botox session, and so we practiced on each other for the first years to practice Botox on us before they went into their clinic on
Okay.
Friday to practice on their patients. So you get a good amount, and you do quite a bit during Mohs too, which I haven't done Mohs yet, so I can't really comment on how much you do, but from what I've heard, you get quite a bit of training there too. When I started residency here, I thought maybe that was going to be a downside to the program, that maybe we don't get as much as in cosmetics training, but like now that I've completed my first year, I don't really feel like that's an issue. You also have elective time, so like if you want to go follow like a Westlake dermatologist and learn about like liposuction, like any attending will set you up with the person you want to like go shadow and learn during your elective time.
Okay. So yeah, it sounds like you guys have a lot of opportunities if that's something that you do want to pursue.
Yeah, yes, for sure. Yeah.
And I know that you mentioned continuity clinic. I would love to hear a little bit more about how you got when you start your continuity clinic, how you get your patients, and how that workflow looks like.
Yeah, so you start continuity clinic like just as soon as you're done with orientation, you start your
Okay.
continuity clinic. A lot of times you'll get patients that are people that graduated the previous year, so you're like, carrying on the care for those patients. You will get a lot of consults too. We have an attending who is in charge of all the telederm consults, and so she will refer them to you, and if you have an opening in your clinic, like that speeds it up so that you can see them sooner. But I personally love like my community care clinic. I just a lot of the patients there are Hispanic and Spanish speaking. So like if you're not Spanish speaking, I think it can be a little bit frustrating because it takes longer to get the interpreter, and it's definitely like a lot of Hispanic people. Most like all my patients pretty much speak Spanish, but they also give me all the Spanish speaking patients because I speak Spanish. Um, but I love that clinic. You really take ownership for your patients. You get to call the shots to what you want. You have to staff it with your attending, but most of the time, like unless you're going to cause harm to the patient or you're very wrong, like the attending will let you make that decision. So you'll have a lot of autonomy. You get to do procedures during your clinic too. So I love it. Sometimes it can get really, really busy, but it's a fun clinic.
That sounds like a great experience, and I'm sure it definitely helps being bilingual.
Oh, for sure. Anywhere in Texas, I
Yeah.
think it would really help. Yeah.
So the next question is about global health opportunities. Does your program offer any opportunities in global health?
Yeah, it does. I think there's like a global health like elective that you can do, and you can choose like a path that you can do that's just all residents can do it, so you're offered it's like through the internal medicine department. You can choose to do it, and you can choose to do like to go and do global health like for a week to go wherever you want. I do think you have to probably cover the costs, but that opportunity does exist. It's something I was very interested in doing as a medical student, and it does exist. You can do that here, yes.
Okay, so it's about like a week-long program that you can opt into essentially, and you
Yeah, yeah.
wherever you go.
It's kind of like like those career tracks that you like just do in like additional like side program that's held by internal medicine, but you get to, I think you use some of your elective time to do this program, and then you can go like to Africa. I think there are programs in Africa. I think there are programs in Mexico too that you can go to for a week. I think it's for a week.
And can you speak a little bit on how your call or consult service works?
Yeah. So you start doing call your first year. Your first week of call, you'll do it with your first. So you have 6 weeks as a first year. Your first two will be buddy call. So you'll take it with one of the senior residents. You're not alone. So like basically to learn the ropes about call. And then the other 4 weeks you do on your own. Then you go, when you're a PGY3. So I
Mhm.
only do 5 weeks. And then my next year, I'll only do 4 weeks. You start doing consult month now as a second year derm. So I haven't done a consult month yet. It's my next month that's coming is consults. It'll be my first time on consults. But you in general, it's like you are off. You have to go to your community care that that half day that you're assigned, and then you are the on-call resident from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And if you get called, you go see the patient. You usually round with the attending around 1. And it's I've seen that you do check out every Friday for the patients that you saw, and then sometimes you present on once a month, like whoever was a consult resident will present on cool cases, and the things that are seen are honestly fascinating. They're very cool pathology. But I have not done the consults month myself, but that's overall the gist of it.
Okay. The next kind of section is talking a little bit about research. I know
Yeah.
you mentioned that you're not specifically interested in research, but does your program have any research requirements?
Yes, it does. So they want you to do one scholarly project like a year. So like last year, I did this presentation and then I wrote a paper. You can do a case report if you want. It's just minor, like that you're doing something once a year. And then you have a QI project that you have to work on. So I took over a project of one of the graduating seniors with another co-resident. It's pretty low key. You can choose something that you want to be very invested in, or it's not as demanding as the final research project, which is like your one scholarly project that is like you have to complete over your 3 years. And so your first year, like now I'm kind of working on the proposal. I have to present it in a couple of months to the attendings, and basically like they give me feedback for what they think about. I'm doing a systematic review.
Mhm.
Do whatever you like. Some people do questionnaires, but that's like the one big project that you have to do.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so those are overall the research requirements. And then if you want to choose more, like I know I have some co-residents that love research, and like they're at like currently now at a conference like presenting the research. And so if you want to do research, there's a lot of opportunities for you to do, but the bare minimum is what I mentioned that's required.
Okay. And then since you talked about conferences, does your school offer any support for getting grants or to going to conferences?
Yeah, you get a budget. So I think it's 1,500 every year if you're presenting at a conference.
Okay.
So usually covers your travel and your stay with that 1,500. We all are like have the Friday before the AAD off, and I don't think they pay towards the AAD, but AAD will give you a check. Um, and then you have 10 sick days. You can use 5 of those sick days for either interviews or conferences. And then if you're presenting at a conference, you get 1 additional day. That's just like your travel day that's not deducted from your sick days. So yeah, you can definitely, there's people like our research fellows that have gone to like a ton of research conferences, and you do get support.
Okay. Are there any other financial perks with attending conferences and research?
Oh, specifically attending conferences and research, I think it's just a yearly 1,500.
Okay. Any other financial perks that you can think of? And
Yeah, so you do get like a stipend for like boards prep. I think it's like 300 something dollars per year for boards prep. Then I think it's almost $2,000 of like other supplies. So like you can, like I used it for my derm light.
Mhm.
Some people will use it like, I think you can like use part of it to a laptop. I don't think you can use it on a phone. And then just textbooks and things like that. So
Okay.
we do have a pretty good budget for that.
That is wonderful. And you said you get $300 for exam prep, for your board prep. Can
Yeah.
you tell me a little bit more about your exam prep and like if you have any protected administrative time for study?
Yeah. So you get that half day a week of ACA, and that's your protected time to study. Your first year derm, when your first year derm, you take your basic exam around March, April, and then like we all got like a Q bank, and you can use the funds to pay for the Q bank. And then once you start your second year, you start taking basics. So you have 4 basic exams that you have to take over the span of about a year. Like the second half of your second year derm until the second half of your like third year of derm. And then once you graduate derm, you have your official boards exam, which I think the residents just took like a week ago. And to my knowledge, everyone that's ever taken the boards has passed it. I hope we continue to be that way. So you get a lot of prep time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you also have your didactics, which are weekly on Fridays, which you had mentioned. And
Yeah.
those are half days?
Yeah. every Friday morning till noon.
Okay. And is it typically it's rotating faculty that are coming in? Like, are there multiple lectures that happen during that time?
Yeah, so usually from 7 to 8, we'll have derm path. We have a few dermatopathologists. We also have a dedicated derm path like month every year. And so the first hour will be derm path, and then usually it's either grand rounds. We'll have speakers that are invited from other programs to talk about things. We have people come to talk about financial stuff, or like if you're interested, or like private practice, or if you're interested in starting your own derm, like group. So it's kind of well-rounded in that it's not just derm. There are other topics like finance that are reviewed too that I think are important in shaping you as a good doctor, because we don't get that much training on financial administration. So we invite speakers. We'll have attendings do Kodachromes or teach certain chapters. Yeah.
Very cool. Um, Tell me a little bit about your program's leadership.
Yes, so we have two associate program directors, so Dr. Ahmed and Dr. Diaz. And then you have the chief who is in charge of making your schedule, is the point of contact for conflicts. And usually, like this year, all four residents are splitting when they're chief.
Okay.
Uh, so they're all chief for 3 months. Last year there were two chiefs. So it depends on your year. You guys kind of decide how, if there's someone, wants to do modes, they usually like want to be chief to be more competitive. But in other years, you just divide it between four people.
Okay. And what are some of the responsibilities of being chief?
So you make the schedule, you're the point of contact for any like a sick day and like rearranging who's gonna cover, you do that. You plan like lectures, you help like form who's coming on Fridays to do the lectures. Um, it's quite a bit of work. When you are chief, you do get an extra half day of ACA. So you get two half days of ACA for your duties, because
A lot
some
to work.
people that say it is like it is quite a bit of work, from what I've heard. Um, yeah.
Okay. And then are the program leadership receptive to feedback? Like, do you guys have touch points and opportunities or ways in which to provide that feedback?
Yeah, so you get a lot of feedback as a resident, especially a first year resident, but overall, we have forms and we have I think it's semesterly meeting. Every semester you have to meet with the leadership and just kind of review like the reviews from other attendings and like things that just basically it's how you're currently standing as a resident. Um, but you get to review the attendings too. So a couple times, you get every month you get to review the rotation you were just on. At the end of the year, you get to review every attending. When there are concerns, for example, when people brought up concerns with the VA, like the attendings were super responsive, and like the head of the VA came and like held a 1 hour like session on Friday to just kind of talk about things, and like met with the nurses afterwards several times to work on improvements and kind of see how the nursing staff could help the residents at the VA. I think they're very receptive to feedback. There is anonymous reporting too. If you don't feel comfortable saying it, there are several ways to report anonymously. Um, the chiefs always serve as a contact point, the program directors. You could really talk to anyone you want. You also get to pick one mentor who's going to be your mentor. Obviously, I go to mentorship for a lot of them, but there's one person that you pick, so you can go to your mentor if you feel comfortable going to them.
Well, yeah, it's great to hear that there's so many opportunities for feedback and that it seems like there's a lot of, flexibility and like collaboration in that too. So,
Yeah, I definitely felt that way. Yeah.
so I want to talk a little bit about resident life next.
Mhm.
How would you just describe the culture of your program? Like personalities, interests?
Yeah. So it's funny because I feel like, and they told me this, but I'm just now becoming a second year derm, that like with every graduating and entering class, like the dynamics shift a little bit. And I agree. Um, I think that every person is very different. Like there are people like in my class who want to do peds and are very peds oriented. There are people more like me that are like, oh, I love surgery. Like I don't think I'll do Mohs, but like I'm very surgically oriented. Like, I'm more like surgery minded. And so I think we're all quite different, which is good, I think, in many ways to make us, I don't think there's like one style of resident that our program loves and always goes for that, like at all. Like I think there are people from different races, like different, just it's very diverse. And I think that they just kind of find a way to pick people that come from very different backgrounds and have very different interests, but that will get along well together. I don't think we have a prototypical resident at all. But we all get along super well. This year they started doing a resident retreat the first week that the residents are in. So we went bowling, they went to, it was so much fun. I wish we had had that as first years. It was a lot of fun. It was really good to like just spend time with the first years before they're kind of thrown in and life gets a little bit too busy for us to hang out. We have a wellness committee that where we do things as residents and then with attendings to bond outside of residency, which I think, or you know, outside of clinic, which I think is important to do too. But overall, people, you know, very helpful. I don't think it's very toxic at all. Like I don't think there's, which um I don't feel that way at all. But I do think that we are very different and every class is very different. Every person in every class is very different. I would not say we have a prototypical resident like stereotype. Yeah.
What do you guys typically do for fun outside of the clinic, and how do residents spend their time?
Yeah. Well, like residents individually or residents when we're in a group together?
Both.
Yeah. So everyone again has very different interests. Like we had a pickleball social with the attendings and the residents a few months ago, just kind of at the end of the year for all of us to socialize. And there was one of my co-residents who's now the chief, and um she used to be a tennis player. So I was warming up with her. She'd never played pickleball before, and I was like, "You are amazing. Like, wow. I can't believe this is the first time you've ever pickleballed in your life." And now we meet up every week and play pickleball.
Oh,
And
fun.
it's so crazy because she's been playing for like 4 months. I've been playing for like a year, and she's already better than me. She's really good. And so, you know, and I've actually ran into attendings at pickleball courts and like played kind of, you know, near them, like next to them. So me and some co-residents play pickleball. Have gone like doing pottery. We've gone all out to eat. There are just a ton of, I didn't get to go, but they went to a vineyard once. Yeah, we went to Barton Springs. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities to do things, and
Sure.
like
Yeah.
us have a lot to offer.
Yeah, I think that too. Like part of the reason I chose coming to Austin is like the city itself. I think there's so much to do here, and I just have always loved Austin. And so just depending on what you like, there's things that you can do here. I think I personally really care about like life, like personal life balance and like work balance, and I think it's very easy to achieve that here. Like I think it was much easier than it was as a medical student,
Yeah,
which is good. It's a nice change.
that is good. Do you tell me a little bit about where residents typically live? Like, do most
Yeah.
people rent? Do they live close to the clinics and hospitals and houses or apartments?
Yep. Yeah. So it kind of depends. We have clinics all over the place. So you can live wherever you want. I think there is a rule that when you're on call, you're supposed to be 30 minutes away from the hospital. So kind of in a 30-minute radius of our main, like of downtown. I live in East Austin in a house, but I'm only able to do that because my fiance, like before that, I lived alone in an apartment. I know a lot of people lived in apartments. On East Side is super close to the hospital. People live north, people live south. Um, it really is like there's so many options for housing. I do think housing is a little bit more expensive here than, for example, it was in Houston. But it's all relative. The residents, since I've been here, since I did my TY year here, have really pushed residents in all over, uh, pushed for increase in how much we're paid, and they
Mm.
have really succeeded because over the past years, like they've just really been every year they keep increasing our salary, which is really nice given inflation. Uh, but they've Ascension and Dell have really done a great job at listening to the residents from across all programs to kind of help us financially, since Austin isn't like the cheapest city it's pretty
Right.
cheap, but in Texas it's like probably a little bit more expensive than, for example, Houston is.
Okay. Is there a housing stipend specifically?
No, not to my knowledge.
Okay. And I know you said it's necessary to have a car. We all know in Texas it's necessary to have a car.
Sure.
Could you tell me a little bit more about the breakdown of residents being single, married, people with kids?
Yeah, I would say on average, like in every class, there's like one person who's single, one person who's married, and like two people that are dating. Like there's really like the whole spectrum. Like the co-resident I was saying that is a dermatologist in Brazil, she is older. She has three kiddos. She's the only one currently that has kids. But we have people in our residency who are married. We have people who are single. We have people who are dating, like and have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Um, but it's, as I mentioned, like there's like it's all over the place. It's really weird.
Right.
Yeah.
There's not a single like type of
No,
person.
it really isn't at all. Yeah.
How does your program support having children, like maternity and paternity leave, like flexibility with scheduling?
Yeah, so we haven't had anyone while I've been here in the past year that left for maternity or paternity leave. I think you get 6 weeks,
Okay.
and then you have the additional 3 weeks of um, PTO that you get every year. But I know that the program will work with you because, for example, we just had one of our co-residents have a injury and he needed surgery for his knee, and they didn't know if he was going to be out for like 2 months or how long he needed recovery where he couldn't move. And the attendings and the leadership really worked with him to like allow him to be able to take the time he needed to take off. And
Right.
when he came back, do things like be at the VA and just do teledermatology, because some half days you just do teledermatology. So you just sit at a computer and like he could rest. And they really worked with him to make it work. So I think they're supportive overall, but I do think formally it's 6 weeks of leave, of I think paid leave.
Okay. Do they have any like babysitting services, like anything like that that they kind of offer or can work with you with?
No, no. Last year when I started, we had a lot of attendings out on maternity leave, but not to my knowledge, no, there's no like babysitting service from like Dell or Ascension.
Okay. Um, how can applicants find more information about your program if they're interested?
Um, well, they're welcome to email me. There's our website. I think our attendings are super responsive, like our leadership, like Dr. Ahmed or Dr. Diaz. I remember emailing Dr. Diaz before, and she was very responsive. And we even had a Zoom meeting before I went, doing away rotation. I did my away rotation here, and I loved it. And you really get a feel for the program, because I may be saying these things, but like you have to come, like you learn a lot from being there on your own and just kind of like being in like stressful situations or just being in clinic day to day. So if you're really interested, I would advise you to do an away rotation here if you get the chance.
Right.
Um, yeah.
Very cool. Any other advice that you have for medical students interested in dermatology?
I would say go for it. I think a lot of people like don't do derm because they're scared that it's too competitive, but it's a wonderful profession, and if you really think you love it and it's what you're going to do for the rest of your life, like even if you don't match the first time or you have to take a research year because you want to be more competitive, like it's worth it. It's for the rest of your life. And I think as a med student, like I went college right into med school. I never like took a breather, and I was like, please don't tell me I'm not gonna, like I have to, like the idea of prolonging this for one more year seemed so like terrible, but truly it's just one more year. So I'd say go for it if you really love it.
And then in terms of choosing a residency program, any advice to students on like what to look for and anything
Yeah.
like
So, I when I did it, we could only do one away. I think aways will help a lot. I don't know how many you're allowed to do now. I know things have
get
changed.
through for A&M because we don't have a
Right,
home
right,
program?
right. So do ways to meet programs. I emailed a ton of different programs in different places to see if I can do research there. Like I do think knowing people and like kind of making yourself known to the program and that signaling interest is really important. This is such a small world. Durham is such a small world. Going to conferences to meet people. Um, what else was I gonna say? And then honestly, even though interviews are virtual, like I still feel like I got a pretty good feel of what the program was. And for me, it's like, where are you going to be happiest? Where did you feel like you had the best interview day? Where did you vibe when with the residents? And I think that's really important, because no, liking your residents is really important. It's a tiny, Durham is tiny no matter where you go. Programs are really small. You're going to work with them a lot. And so having a good environment to work with is really important. And I think, if you can choose city's pretty big too, because you have weekends now. You have time to enjoy and be outdoors if that's what you care about. So for me, like Austin as a city, it just aligns with a lot of the things that I like to do. So yeah, a lot of things to think about. Where's family, things like that. But all derm programs will give you great training, period. Like you will be a good dermatologist no matter where you go, for sure.
Well, I appreciate it. And that's all the questions that I had. And I thank you so much for your time and being willing to answer all the questions and giving such good insight onto what your program looks like. So we really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, my pleasure.
All right.